Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I'm here with the very last video for our channel in 2025. And appropriately enough, I'm going to be talking about my 10 favorite books that I read this year. As per usual, these books do not necessarily have to have been released this year, they just have to be things that I read for the first time this year. Out of everything that I've read, I read more female writers than male writers, which is quite a change. I don't know if this is the first time, but I find that I read many more male authors in general. Perhaps it's the general book clubs that I take part in that contribute to why I'm reading more works from female writers. I only read 3 more female than male. So there's that to take into account. But another thing is that my drought of finding a 5-star read among first-time reads has continued. I have not rated a book 5 stars since June of 2024, so it's been a year and a half. I have rated 4 revisitations, which I did a lot of revisiting because we filmed our revisitation season, which was our 17th season, earlier this year, and I had given Macbeth by William Shakespeare, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, The Stranger by Albert Camus, and Dracula by Bram Stoker. They all got 5 stars. They had gotten 5 stars before as well, and by rereading them, that only solidified it more. But the 10 best books that I read this year, the top 4 each got 4.5 stars. The others got 4 stars. And plenty of others got 4 stars as well. So it was a relatively good reading year. It was a solid year. But I'm still looking for a 5-star read, and hopefully I can achieve that in 2026. And let's get right into the countdown. I like to do a countdown starting with my 10th best and working my way all the way to number 1. And number 10 on my list is Attachments by Rainbow Rowell, which romance is not a genre of interest of mine, but I read this for Monthly Mammoth Millennials' book club, and I thought that this was a very interesting expedition into romance as a genre. This has to do with Lincoln O'Neill, who takes a job as an internet security officer at the Courier. He thinks he's going to be doing major things such as setting up firewalls or crushing hackers, as per the blurb. But his main job is that he flags and reports emails that are inappropriate for the work setting. And he ends up reading the emails of Beth Fremont, who is a film critic for the Courier, and she's interacting with her friend and co-worker, Jennifer Scribner Snyder. And most of their interaction throughout the book is via these emails, which these are emails that are not relevant to what's going on, but Lincoln chooses just to follow along and ends up developing a infatuation for Beth. And in some way, Beth ends up developing a infatuation for the cute guy. And there are so many flaws within this book that pertain to the reasons and the tropes that make me steer clear of the romance genre, but there was something about this story and how very invested I become with the characters here. The backstories were very strong, and the characters were just very well developed. I thought it was very creatively arranged, and it gave me this warm and fuzzy feeling that I was rooting for something good to happen to Lincoln and Beth. I really wanted them to cross paths officially, because they acknowledge one another, but nothing that's entirely... but it takes a while for things to actually become more formal. But I think that even though a lot cannot be explained, and as I said before, it really gives me reason as to why I don't read romance, there was just something about this. The fact that this book shows hope that anybody has the ability to be with the person that they're in love with, even if things don't necessarily add up right at the forefront. And the way that they described them, I got the sense that Lincoln, they described him as being like the brawny man, bigger and buff, whereas my initial impression of Beth was that she kind of looked like Joe Frost, the super nanny. But when I saw pictures of Rainbow Rowell over again, I think that Rainbow Rowell basically put herself into Beth's character, which... this was quite a charming and delightful read. Definitely not perfect, but definitely worth a spot on the list. Number 9 on this list also is occupied by something that I don't generally dip into. Maybe a little bit more than romance, but that is The Busybody Book Club by Freya Sampson, which is a cozy mystery. And this takes place in a small Cornish village called St. Tredoc, and the central character is Nova Davies, who moved from London to St. Tredoc, got a job at the community center, and started a book club. There's a very eclectic group of members, which include an older woman named Phyllis Hudson. She is an Agatha Christie lover, and she treats life like it's one of Agatha Christie's works. She's especially enthralled with Miss Marple. She's very stubborn. She has an old English bulldog named Craddock, and Craddock goes everywhere with her, whether he is welcome or not. You have an older man named Arthur, who is a retired dairy farmer, and he cares for his wife, and they both connect with reading. And then you have Ash, who is a teenager who's interested in sci-fi, but he's looking to socialize. And then you also have Michael, who is attending his first book club meeting at the beginning. He's very shady, and he leaves abruptly, and afterward, there's money that's stolen from the community center, and a dead body is found at his house. So that creates the landscape for the mystery. This is a very fine, cozy mystery, and it definitely keeps your attention. I definitely felt very engaged as I was reading this. Anything with murder is definitely not going to be cozy, but I think that what makes this cozy is that the stories involving the characters in this piece that don't necessarily connect to the predicament at hand really keep you interested in a different kind of way. You're connecting with people that are easy to become interested in, and I think that this is definitive in the vibe that this genre gives off. I think that this is entertaining, and as the book progresses, you definitely want to know what's going to happen next. And I read the Busybody Book Club for the Bookmarked Book Club that I attended my first meeting in July. This is my highest ranking book from their club. The 8th best book that I read this year is The Clackety by Lorna Senf. And this has to do with an Evie von Rath, who moves to Blight Harbor with her Aunt Desdemona, and she tells her not to go into the abandoned slaughterhouse, which she herself is going into, and then ends up going missing. Evie goes and looks for her and comes across the Clackety, who will help Evie find her aunt if she's able to find and bring back John Jeffrey Pope, who is a serial killer of Blight Harbor. And she goes through these different houses and comes across these different beings. And the houses aren't necessarily not all of them are generally structured houses that you would recognize, but they take on so many different forms, and she goes on so many different adventures and through so many different obstacles. There are great remnants of other books within this one, especially Coraline and A Wrinkle in Time. But I felt that this one was better because I felt that Evie was much more real and authentic, and I think that the other characters were also very supportive, complex, which also made them multidimensional. I don't necessarily feel that this book needed the illustrations. I think that was its weaker spot, but I still thought that this was a very good book that definitely appeals, that should definitely appeal to its target age group, and even those that are older. And I am definitely inclined to want to read more, the other two that are in this trilogy. Number 7 on my list is Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon by David McGowan. And this has to do with the figures in entertainment that lived or were connected or visited, congregated inside Laurel Canyon, which is an area in the Hollywood Hills. And the concentration is on singers and musicians from the 1960s and the early 1970s. They do touch upon other people, though, that he feels are relevant to the subject matter at hand. And specifically, it's those that had dark sides, suspicious connections, were engaged in questionable activity, many of which got to where they were because they were related to people that had particular connections or positions of power and authority. And this really brought to light what it really takes to succeed as a performer. There's much more to it than being able to just simply go to a record label, show what you have, and be able to keep going at it. There's a lot more that's either going to when you come in, you're either screwed up or you're going to be screwed up based on what happens here. This really was a great deal of food for thought, and it brought to light what it means to be famous and who it is that gets to be famous. And I think that this gave clear evidence to things that readers like myself were suspecting. But I do feel that this book is as good as it is going to be. This is probably as high as that I would be able to rank this, because David McGowan did his best to be able to gather the information and the sources that he was able to put together, because the figures in this piece were not going to give him the primary source that he was seeking. He didn't even bother making the effort. He thought it'd be more effective to garner other, more exterior sources so that he could approach this more objectively and inform readers what really took place. I also learned more about interesting, more trivial details about the music industry, namely things that, like, the session performers that really played a role in providing the background music, when you had performers that you thought were gifted musicians, but they just acted like they were playing an instrument rather than actually doing so, which was why they seemed like they were much more talented in the studio than they were when they actually went out and performed live in concert. Number 6 on my list is The Shallows, What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains by Nicholas Carr. This was actually a book that we originally went over on our channel in Season 10. I did not take part in that discussion, but we revisited it during Season 17. And this was not what I was expecting, but I really liked what it was I was reading. I was expecting this to be more people-centric, where the book was more about how people responded to the internet, but this had a lot to do with the formation of the internet and what it's done to alter the lives of most people. It started way back when with the various modes of technology that people have relied on, even going as far back as telling time. But I think that the direction that this took was really impactful, because this is filled with a great deal of information that makes it very haunting, but at the same time very enlightening. This was first released in 2010. It was re-released with a new afterword in 2020. And not much really needed to be changed, but a lot has changed. But yet, this book is still it hasn't been dated the way that things like Notes from Underground, which I also read this year, have fallen victim to. But I think that new versions of this book can definitely be released every 10 years. And I think that because there are going to be so many different advances, especially with AI. Number 5 on my list is a play, and that is Ruined by Lynn Nottage. And this play has to do with a central character named Mama Noddy, who is a who runs a nightclub in the Democratic Republic of Congo. She shelters women that work there. They entertain the male attendees, and many of these male attendees are fighting in a civil war, so that creates a great deal of friction because she's looking to run a business. They're looking for people to declare allegiance to their side. But it does lead to major complexities, and there are major complexities throughout. And I think that this was, despite only being 64 pages, it was so rich, deep, and these characters, they were honestly crafted and meaningful. I think that Christian's development was especially meaningful. He was a salesman that appears at the beginning, and he certainly, you see him go on this roller coaster of an experience throughout. And he's well crafted, he's complex, but he's understandable for the time and place of this piece. And I think that Lynn Nottage can take just about any idea, setting, circumstance, and she can turn it into a well-developed play. The plays are meaningful, the characters are larger than life, they command a room. They don't even have to be the driving force of their environment. The supporting characters also play a huge role. I feel that Ruined, Sweat, and Crumbs from the Table of Joy were all great Lynn Nottage plays. I didn't care so much for Malima's Tale, but most of what she's written has been impressive. Number 4 on my list is The Measure by Nikki Erlich, and this is a dystopian piece where one day everybody that's 22 years old or older receives a box with a string in it, and it turns out that the longer the string, the longer you have to live. These strings depict how long you have left in your life. But we follow 8 different characters. This includes Nina, who is an editor, her girlfriend Maura, who works for a publishing company, Nina's sister Amy, who is a teacher, Ben, who is an architect, Hank, who is a doctor, Anthony, who is a congressman that's running for president. We have Jack, who is Anthony's nephew, who's entering the army, and Javier, who is Jack's roommate, who's also planning to enter the army. Most of the chapters alternate from their perspective, and this pertains to how each of them respond to their string or to the circumstance at hand. Some of them are short stringers, some of them are long stringers. So everything is different, but I think that no matter what, these characters were incredibly fleshed out. And the world around them was incredibly fleshed out. I think that the dystopian that Erlich created was just remarkable. And I think that her grasp of the what-if speculation, I think that being able to balance that concept with the story and the characters and everything that was going on, especially and the way that they responded, was just an excellent job. I think that it was well sequenced, and I think that overall it was a fine accomplishment. This probably would have been number 1 on my list, and it would have been a 5-star read. However, I don't think she did a great job with the with writing the process of an American election. I think that she could have also been more objective when it came to inserting inserting political opinion, which I think that other books that have written about the American election process were able to do so with a much smoother delivery. And it didn't come off as being preachy in any which way. But again, I haven't. It's been a year and a half since I've rated anything 5 stars. But this was overall a very good book, a 4.5-star book, and I am intrigued to see what Nikki Erlich is going to write next, because this is her first book. Number 3 on my list is A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, who is known most for The Kite Runner, which was his first book. The Kite Runner concentrates on men in Afghanistan. This one concentrates more on women in Afghanistan. In particular, she writes about Maryam and Layla, who come from different backgrounds. They have different circumstances, family situations, but their paths end up crossing one another at some point during their lives. They don't necessarily gel very well together at first, but they begin to develop a very meaningful connection with each other because of the things that they share. And this does bring great light to the struggles that women have in a country where misogyny is at its worst. These struggles are driven by the basis of sex. I like that this book is just very informative, and it reminds us of all of the kinds of people that are in this world. And it gives us a general and greater understanding as to what Afghanistan really is like, and why it is the way that it is. I think that Khaled Hosseini is a master craftsman when it comes to being able to give us that voice and help us develop a greater understanding about Afghanistan and the people that live there and why it is the way that it is, because I think that a lot of us have questions as to why that may be. But he writes with such power, and I think that he does his best to come out with only the most impactful, solid stories that he can produce, which is why he's only written 3 books thus far. The Kite Runner, Thousand Splendid Suns, and The Mountains Echoed. It'd be nice to see him write more, but I want him to write what he feels he can deliver, and I think that this was a good delivery. The second best book that I read in 2025 is My Name is Yip by Patty Crew. This was a book that was longlisted for the Walter Scott Prize, which is where it crossed my path. But this book takes place in Herons Creek, Georgia during the 19th century. And this is told through the written account of Yip Tolroy, who is mute, has alopecia universalis, which means that he has no hair on his body, and he's only grown to be 4 feet 8 inches. He lives with his mother, who's very cold and distant. A lot has to do with the fact that his dad left them when he was born, and Yip is much different, which being different like he is often not well received during that period of time. But after an incident, he ends up teaming up with Dud Carter, and then both of them end up on the run because Yip ends up killing somebody in self-defense. But this escape and journey lead to them really developing and learning more about themselves. They discover themselves during this journey, and I think a lot of that is reflected in what Yip is writing. I think that this book is so meaningful and deep when it comes to the characters and how they're reasonably depicted within this landscape of history. I think that Yip is such a well-written character, and I love how he conveys his story. This is written in a very Cormac McCarthy-esque kind of way, but I feel that in this case it's much more appropriate because this is Yip's very own account. Cormac McCarthy writes he writes just about everything in the same way, whereas this is written as Yip is explaining it. I really admire the honesty that Crew depicts in his writing, because his characters are authentic for this time. The setting, the direction, the circumstances, I think they're very well done. And I think that this is reflective of the neutral and unremorseful stance that the real world has to offer. And I think you definitely see this very well depicted in this book. This definitely makes me feel more inclined to want to look into more Walter Scott Price books that were long-listed, short-listed, and won the prize. I'm a real enthusiast for lists, so books that win awards or writers that win awards, I think that it really catches my attention. The very best book that I read in 2025 goes to my roots as far as my reading and my writing, and it's in the horror genre. And after thinking, I was really torn between the top three. Between A Thousand Splendid Suns, My Name is Yip, and this book, Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill, is my number one book of 2025. And this has to do with Judas Coyne, who is an aged death metal rock legend who has a collection of the macabre, which includes a hangman's noose and a snuff film, among plenty of other things. There was a picture that John Wayne Gacy drew of the Seven Dwarves, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves, while he was in prison. But he ends up wanting to add a ghost to his collection because he has a very reckless way of thinking. He lives in this carefree kind of way with his assistant Danny and his girlfriend Georgia. This is not his first girlfriend, and he's known for naming them after the state that they're from or from an area that they're from. But when he gets this ghost, it appears in this heart-shaped box in the form of a dead man's suit, and all of these horrifying things start to happen after he gets this. They happen to him, people around him, and he feels he needs to escape, and brings Georgia and his dogs with him because, number one, he's looking to escape the horrors that are taking place in this physical location, but he also wants to get a refund from the person that sold it to him, because this person isn't a random seller. This is somebody who is doing this with intent. And I think that everything about this book was of good quality. I think that I really like the incorporation of the old school horror, and I also felt that it had an engrossing story. I know that Joe Hill doesn't really like to be compared to his dad, Stephen King. That's why he goes by Joe Hill and not Joe King. But I have to say that they both have a common strength when it comes to writing very involved and rich stories while also incorporating aspects of horror. A lot of horror writers put their story in the horror where a good writer puts their horror in the story. And I think that a lot of my favorite works that reflect the genre are put within a good story, and that they're being written because it's being written and it's being read because it's a good story and not necessarily to cater to a market. This felt like being in a room where it was so hot that you're going to know it and you're going to feel it regardless. You're going to be hooked and wanting to keep going with this adventure. And the reason why I have this book at number 1 is because out of everything that I've read, it accomplished the most while having the least amount of gripes. Because I think everything on this list had some little gripe or detail that prevented it from being 5 stars. And I think that out of everything, this one had the least. If I can even think of anything off the top of my head that really stuck out and stayed. But I felt that everything was addressed, every mistake was put on the spot, yet the characters acted upon them accordingly. Nobody was perfect, everybody was complex, but they dealt with their issues in their own way. And I think that that is the way of the world. And I think that in this circumstance, this was exactly what I was looking for when I was approaching this. And I think that that's the way readers, for the most part, will approach something like this. And some of them, they produce good results, others not so much. I felt that the length of each section, the length of each storyline, the length of what was needing to be conveyed at any given time was exactly what it needed to be, and that was that. And I think there were some of them were just a paragraph long on a single page, and that's all it needed to be. I think that Joe Hill definitely has mastered the craft of writing, particularly in the horror genre, and I definitely want to read more of what he's written. I've been waiting to read something by him. I suggested it to Monthly Mammoth Millennials, and we had that opportunity, and I'm really grateful. These are my 10 favorite books that I read in 2025, and I'm really looking forward to what kind of reading year 2026 has to offer. I am putting in for a larger 19th season, which we're going to be filming next year, and I want to wish everybody a happy, healthy, safe, and prosperous new year. I want next year to be a year of success. I want it to be a year of kindness. I want it to be a year of rooting for the progression of the common individual. I want it to be a year where we just be the best that we can possibly be and bring out the best that we can possibly bring out in others. Next year is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence in the United States of America. I feel grateful that I'm going to be able to see that anniversary take place, God willing. And I really hope that I can read a lot of great books and perhaps end this drought of not reading, finally being able to read something that I can give 5 stars to. And because I want to be able to give something legitimately 5 stars. But I want to thank everybody that's tuned in to our channel this year. I hope we can get some more viewership, more subscribers. It'd be great if you're interested to become a patron on our Patreon. And overall, I just want you to be well, be happy, and love one another. And root for one another. And get the best out of one another. For now and as always, I encourage you to keep reading.